Hello, everyone. Welcome to the weekly show of What is School For? My name is Dr. I. I'm the CEO of Classroom Without Walls and the host of this weekly live streaming show. Hold on, there's an echo on my weekly live streaming show. Hold on. I have to close a bunch of windows. Sorry about that, guys. There's an echo on my. Oh, I think maybe Sue, you also.
No, everything's closed on mine. You think it's me?
Hold on, guys. It's okay. We're live. We're really live.
Okay, it's the way it goes, right? Let me make sure. This is the only thing that's open on mine.
Guys, it's okay. We're live. We're really live.
It's the way it goes, right?
Did you close all the tabs, Sue?
I closed everything, but let me. If I mute myself, then I can't talk.
Did you close all the tabs, Sue?
But let me. If I mute myself, then I can't talk.
No, if you can just mute yourself for now.
Sure.
Mute yourself for now, and then. Oh, I think it's gone. No, if you can just mute yourself for now.
Sure.
Mute yourself for now, and then. Oh, I think it's gone. Is it gone? No, if you can just mute yourself for now. Sure. Mute yourself for now, and then. Oh, I think it's gone. Is it gone? I think that's the problem. Sue and I were just talking about how many tabs we have open. Is it gone? Okay. I think that's the problem. Sue and I were just talking about how many tabs we have open. Is it gone? I think I still heard it. Hold on. That's the problem. Sue and I were just talking about how many tabs we have open. I think it's gone. Yes. Oh my God. Yes. We made it. So anyway, welcome to the show. On this show, I interview leading education professionals, parents, and students to come here to discuss, debate, and disrupt education. Today, I'm super excited and honored to have the one and only Sue Patterson on the show to talk about unschooling and homeschooling and how we can help our children fall in love with learning again, because learning is supposed to be fun, right? As a former college professor, I don't see that in many of my students. Many of my students, they look so stressed, they look so bored, they associate learning with the accumulation of points, and that is not learning. And that's why I homeschool my kids. That's why I'm such a fan of what Sue does. And that's why we're having this conversation. So we're going to talk about unschooling and homeschooling and how we can help our children to fall in love with learning. And for those of you who don't know who is Sue, she is a homeschooling coach and she's also an unschooling expert. I have learned so much from Sue's YouTube channel. I'm going to share all of her social media handles on the screen in a second. And she's also an author. And I have the book here. One of my favorite books related to homeschooling. It's such a great book. And so speaking of which, I also encourage you guys to join us live on Amazon Live. When you join us live on Amazon Live, and you will be able to see this book and a list of other books related to education, disruptive education, parenting, and homeschooling. So to join us live on Amazon Live, just enter classroomwithoutwalls.live in your browser, and you will be able to watch us live on Amazon Live. And make sure to check out Sue's book, Homeschooling Teens. I really love it. Okay. As always, a big shout out to StreamYard for being a sponsor of Classroom Without Walls. And over the last 4.5 years, I tried all the third-party tools to go live on social media. StreamYard is my personal favorite. So in the comment section, there's a link for you to check out StreamYard for free for 10 days and check it out. Let me know if you have any questions. Without any further ado, my friend, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm glad we
I know. And everyone, thank you for joining us live from all over the globe. Let me know in the comment section where you guys are joining us live from, social media wise and geographically speaking. We are live on all the social media channels, including Amazon Live. So, Sue, share with us. I was stalking you. I have been stalking you for quite some time, professional stalker. And so I know your story. You pulled your kids out of school when they were pretty young.
Right.
So can you share that story with us?
Sure.
What happened?
Yeah.
What happened that made you to make that decision?
Right. My son had gone to kindergarten and first grade, and my other two were younger, so they weren't in school. They were doing little preschooly things. I was just a suburban mom doing what everybody does. I didn't really think, oh gosh, I want to be a homeschooler. Oh gosh, I want to do something different. I just was living my life, and my little boy who went to kindergarten, happy, eager to learn, loving learning, early reader, science, he loved it. He loved all kinds of things. As he went through school, he stopped loving it all. He started being more of a downer. He started bringing home this red folder that showed how he was talking too much to his neighbors, or he was dueling with pencils in the back of the room, being a typical little 6-year-old boy, And so I started to think, wow, they're not telling me, oh gosh, he loved our talk about whales today. They're not telling me about that. They're only telling me about behavior management in the classroom. And that seemed to be their main focus, as opposed to inspiring. And so when your kids are 6 and 4 and 2, you look at those third grade kids and they look so big. And I looked down the hallway and there were those third graders with their shoulders drooped and unhappy about learning. And I thought, I don't want that for our future. And we're a military family, so we were about to move. I thought, okay, on the next move, we're just not going to enroll. And how hard can second grade be? And so we started on that path. We just we left at the end of the school year and didn't re-enroll him. But it's interesting, like you were saying about stalking. That's what I did. And back in the 90s, we didn't have the internet. So I was like going to people's houses and talking to them. Well, so what do you do? And how do you do it? And what is it like? And so I was picking the brains of everybody. So I think that's how most of us start. We just kind of pick the brains to find what part of it could we use. Not that we want to duplicate it, although school kind of conditions us to want to duplicate what other people, like there's one right answer or something. But unschooling is certainly individualizing to the max. That you're going to be able to do the things that you want to do, that they want to do. And so that was our focus. And when we started, though, after picking the brains of all those people, it was the 90s. There wasn't a lot of unschooling talk. And so I kind of got convinced into, because, marketing, I got convinced into a curriculum. And I thought, well, I'll just make it fun. I'll just make it sparkly. And it didn't work right. And so we let it go. And I started running into unschoolers and talking with them about how when you don't orchestrate it, when you don't control it, when you don't say, now it's spiders, now it's how you connect the L to the M, when you don't do that, they have an opportunity to learn and to grow the way they want. And that we're all hardwired to learn. We all have that curiosity. And so I think, and I got to thinking about the title of this, How to Help Your Child Love Learning. You go back to what you did before school. Before school, they loved learning. We weren't about, oh, they're 3 and they set the table wrong, but they were excited because they set the table. We don't run in there and say, oh no, that's all wrong. Here's the right way. We're like, yay, that's great. And we encourage and we move in that direction. And then suddenly when we get into the school age, then we're more about, oh no, I got to fix that. I got to fix that too. And I got to fix that. Nobody wants that. If I go even at my age and show something to my husband And he's like, well, that's great, except have you fixed this and you fixed this? And pretty soon I stopped showing things to him like that, you know?
That's
That's
right.
how we move through the world as humans.
I really love it. I really love it how everything, you mentioned, you described this so beautifully that we just follow children's interests, right? My youngest one is only 7 years old, and the one, not my youngest, my second case, yeah, my youngest is newborn, and my second one is 7 years old. But when I look at him, I always like so curious about everything. Then when I think about the students, when I was a college professor, as you and I we discussed this earlier, the spark is no longer there. I really love what you mentioned. You just go back to watch, observe younger kids. So when you made that decision, so as you mentioned, the internet was there, was not there.
It was
Did
a
you have
little bit. We had AOL message boards, you've got mail. But it
so
was way, way different than now, yeah.
yeah. So did you have any fear? Like if you can reflect on this journey, what are some of the biggest fears that you had to overcome? And I feel like, we are new to homeschooling. We have only been doing this for 2 years.
Okay.
I was still learning so much, and I still have lots of fears. So what were some of the
And I
biggest
think you'll
fears?
probably, didn't mean to interrupt you. I think you will always have fear
Mm.
because I think that's part of good parenting. I think we're always afraid that, oh, what if we did, could we do this? Could we do this better? Could we do this better? Those kinds of thoughts come in. One of the things that we talk about in the unschooling world is we talk about this thing called Dschooling, where we start to undo some of the thoughts that we have about what learning looks like. Learning looks like following interests and then veering this way a little or veering this way a little. And you can't do that if you have a curriculum that you're like trying to get through this stuff till you get to this stuff so that you can complete it by this. That's not how interests work. And so my fear was like everybody else's fear, that I was going to ruin their chances for success, that doors were going to close because I was taking this wacky, unconventional approach. And so how I dealt with it was I kind of did a little mental shift. And I said, just for now, we're just doing it for now. And I kind of walked through it. This is just an experiment. We're just trying it for this year. And then what I spent that year doing was pulling in information to learn. And most importantly, observing, seeing my child learning on things I hadn't even brought to them, or seeing them take something that I was not interested in, and all of a sudden they are really, really good at it. And so when that happens, we're able to feel a little more confident, to be a little less fearful. We can see that it's working. And then that's one of the reasons why I wrote the book, was because one of the fears was often because of thanks. One of the fears was often because of the teen years. Everybody was worried about, okay, it's fine to play when they're 7, but what about when they're 14? Well, don't we have to buckle down? And that's more of that deschooling, and why that fear kind of subsides and then comes back again, and then because then we're in a new phase of child raising. We're new at this parenting thing. We only know what we've read or how we've experienced it. We've got a lot of baggage to unpack about it. And so when we can see that the teen years can also be full of play and interests. So that's why I collected all those kids. I used to go to unschooling and homeschooling conferences, and when they would have teenagers in a conference room pre-pandemic, there would be a bunch of teenagers up on a panel, and people could ask questions and they could answer, and it was really interesting. But when there weren't conferences, how did you get answers to some of those questions? Because lots of times, even if you don't have a teenager, you're still thinking about those teen years of how am I going to morph this into that. And so what that did, I asked like 25, 26 questions to all of these young people from 15 to 39. And what was their life like being not in school? Well, how did they make friends? How did they do getting into college? How did they learn? Do they like their mom? Or how did they feel? All the questions that everybody had. And so, let's see. Oh, they just handed me a thing. It says the live will start soon. I don't know why it said that. The link's not working. Okay. Maybe they're not going to the right link. Anyway, so I just wanted to say that the teen years, we do the same thing. We don't have to buckle down. They really will be prepared. And the thing about my family and so many families that we've gotten to know, it works. It really does work. I can say with confidence that it works. I don't have to be like, I think it's gonna work, which is how I was while we were going through it. But now I can come back to parents and say, no, it works. And no, you don't have to prep them for college or look at something and say, how are you going to turn that into a career? So you're the best Minecraft player out there. But what are you going to do with that? And the truth is that one thing leads to another. And whether it's Minecraft or something else or some aspect of technology or gamifying a company, or there's so many different ways. And if we get in there and start to mess with it and say, no, let's channel it this way, we're taking our old ways of looking at things and forcing them through that. And we don't need to do that. We just need to be like a tour guide and a resource finder walking right alongside them so that they can have what they need. And then they'll be able to move in the direction of their interests and they'll keep that spark. Yeah. Because that's why when you say, yeah, they're really excited about this stuff, but then I bring in these history books and they're like, oh, it's not that they don't like history because everybody likes a good story, right? But they don't like the way it's interfering in their joy and their pursuits. And why are we saying that this is more important than that? Because in fact, it's not. In the same way that they learn what they need. We did not have to quiz them at the end of the week to make sure they could walk.
That's right.
Or to eat from a spoon. They learned it because they lived it. And that's our wiring. That's how we are as humans. And so the same thing happens for learning anything. School came around for a lot of reasons that aren't necessarily good. And yes, in some cases, it's great for some families that have a lot of problems and maybe it's a refuge for a child or it gives them an idea of something they might not have known about. But as a parent, when you're right there with them, you can give them lots of exposure to lots of things. It's not the 2 field trips for the whole year. It's field trips as often as you and the kids want to go, as often as the community has something cool to go see. You can kind of tourism your way through your community and see it like somebody was just a guest in your house. What would you take them to see? You're like, oh yeah, there is a merry-go-round in the middle of that mall. Let's go check it out.
Yeah. I really love it. So many, and in the book, there are so many stories. And I love how you describe this as literally we're using the real world as the classroom.
Exactly.
And it was scary too. Like when we just started homeschooling, we relied a lot on curriculum. We still rely a little bit. We are slowly moving away from it. And I know that you had a very good blog article I'm going to share in the comment section that you personally do not recommend curriculum. Can you elaborate more on that? And also maybe you can share with us some of those fascinating stories and you shared in this book and also from those unschooling and homeschooling conferences that you have attended. I think hearing other people's stories, it is so reassuring knowing that we're not, our kids are going to be okay.
Right. I think that the most important thing to remember is that when we can help a child see that we value what they're interested in, then that allows them to kind of rest into it and really go with it, as opposed to they're trying to squeeze it around our agenda, and then they're too tired, or then they don't feel like it. And the next thing you know, their little spark gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And that's what happens with curriculum. When we say, no, we say that 10-year-olds need to be able to do this, this, and this. Okay, first question is why? If they were in school, maybe, so they could then go on to 5th grade. But you're not in school. So you really have a whole lifetime to learn it if it's necessary. And is it really that necessary? When you think back on your own experiences, your own adult life, do you really remember that many things? For all of the quizzing and stress and pressure and pushing one way and shelving the other way, the price that has to be paid to do that is too big. It's too big. There's plenty of time to learn the capitals. And isn't it more important that you just know the capitals if you're really into it, then great. And I'll want you as my Trivial Pursuit partner. But it's just data. It's just little data points that don't really help. Many things that we have forced kids to do in school are not things that we use as adults.
Sorry to interrupt you, but this is such a great point, because we can all relate, right? I got so many degrees, which I kind of regretted, but the things I learned, I don't remember at all, right? Like my husband and I we constantly talking, oh, do you remember this thing you learned? No. And I ask my students all the time, hey, how do you guys prepare for exams? It's just they memorize, they study, and for a few days, short-term memory, and then they return everything.
Pruned, because that's what the brain does when we don't need it anymore. Exactly. And so then when you're 30 and you're like, wow, where is that? We YouTube it, we Google it, and we teach ourselves. And you know what's the deal? The difference is because it's relevant and it's in context and we want to know it. And then we remember it and we don't have to be quizzed. Just like somebody has a conversation with you, they don't say to you, all right, I'm going to get back with you tomorrow to see what you remember. You either remember it or you don't. You were either distracted at the time or you were totally into their story. Yeah. And then you retained it. And that's how learning happens. That's how our brain works best.
Absolutely. And I learned something about neuroscience, right? Like when people feel like, oh, there is an exam coming up, and they are going to have an amygdala hijacking moment, right? Like, oh my God. And in that state, people don't actually learn better. They learn worse.
Right.
And think about what our kids are going through every day. Yeah. So we have a great question from Alice, and she's asking, homeschooling has become an important choice lately. Why do you think that has happened in such a large numbers recently? Yeah, that's a great question. Even like unschooling. And I feel like when I was just Googling and your YouTube channel showed up, and there's just so many other resources. So can you share with us, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's a numbers game. As we have a bigger population, then we're still a tiny percentage of the number of kids that go to school. So the numbers, and then when we have the internet, where we have it easier to communicate. It used to be in the 80s and the 90s, you just waited for your one monthly Growing Without Schooling magazine or your one monthly home education magazine. And so that was the only way to kind of figure out what we were doing and share. And as the internet came, where you can tap into things like this or other websites, or you don't have to live in a place that happens to have a lot of people thinking outside the box. You can live in some rural place in Arkansas and still be in my membership group, or be in some kind of a group that helps you feel, okay, I'm learning and I'm growing and this is helpful. And so I think that has helped a lot. And then I think that we're talking a little more about what's not working at school. And I think that the old days, we didn't talk about that. That's just a given, like death and taxes. You go to school. And so the fact that we're talking about it, allows people to say, well, yeah, that is kind of true for me. I hadn't thought about that before. And so it's kind of like it cracks it open. So
Yeah.
can see their experiences. You know, we have memories, good memories of school, and sometimes it's because those good memories were such unique things that happened. They were so few and far between, they really stood out because the rest of it was pretty pale and very mediocre. And so we're like, yeah, but I have this great science teacher. Mm-hmm. One. How many years did you go to get that one great science teacher? And you could have gone to Outschool, or you could have gone to YouTube and watched Dr. Binox, or whatever it is that is something that's kind of interesting and entertaining for your kid. And the next thing you know, they've learned all kinds of things. And they have the brain space to do it because it's not all crowded out by that pressury, one size fits all, here's what we're learning for third grade. When we don't have that, then we can feel like, oh yeah, I want to play with that. And so it's all about play. And we stay in that play realm, and then we retain it.
Yeah, I love it. And the turning tipping point for us to decide to homeschool our kids is, of course, at the time they were, I think, 8 or 9 years old, and they started to tell us they felt bored. And every time by the end of the day, we ask our children, what is your favorite part of today? And every single day, the answer is recess. I was like, like why? Like we are paying so much money for you. They went to a private school at the time. Why are we paying so much money for you to have recess? You could just have recess every single day at home. Exactly. And kind of following up on this conversation, what do you think? Like many of my viewers are kind of in the traditional school environment, also have amazing parents. So what can school learn from unschooling, right? Like for unschooling kids, like at least for my own children right now, the spark is back, right? They always have so many great ideas. And I read articles from school teachers. They always enjoy having homeschoolers, unschoolers in the classroom because they are full of ideas. So what can traditional school model learn from this unschooling approach?
Well, really, if traditional schooling would look at their own educational research, they would do differently. They wouldn't focus on classroom management, behavior management. They would focus on inspiration. I think that part of it is the system. It's not the teachers
100%
to make a lot of changes. They're trying to be inspiring, but then they're held under a certain pressure to have some grades that show reflective of progress. And brains don't always work like that. That's why leaving the system can really help, because then your brain can work at the pace it needs to work. It can play at the pace it wants to play. So I think that from a what could schools do differently if they were so inclined is play more, have more recess, have more. Don't send home behavior charts that say that they got a yellow dot today because they need to make better choices tomorrow. Because what about all the good things they did during the day? Why hone in on that one little meltdown they had at 1:30 in the afternoon? And I get it. The problem is you've got one teacher and 21 kids, 15 kids, whatever it is for your classroom, and you've got to move them from point A to point B somehow in an inspiring way. And that is a pretty tough task, and may not always happen. But I think that when we talk about having more play with the topics, don't think of it, don't do abstract stuff too soon. That lots of times what we are able to see and use in our world is that they can wait for abstract stuff for later, because then they have all of this pile of experience where they've played with math concepts and they've played with science concepts. So have your science be about mixing colors and having a mess, and do it outside and have everybody wear a little raincoat so that you can do fun things. So having lots of opportunities like that, that's hard. I guess I'm sad for them because I'm not sure they can do it. I'm not sure they're going to be allowed to. And
Yeah.
that's why I want to tell people don't duplicate school, because when we duplicate school at home from a learning perspective, we're taking the worst parts of it
Absolutely.
and then trying to do it at home because it makes us feel familiar. It makes us feel safer because we, we're remembering it. And instead, if we can think about um, playing with them more, leaning into the things that they're interested in, even when we're like, they can't make a career out of that. Who knows what they'll make a career out of? Quit being critical.
Yeah.
Notice that criticism is a voice in your head that's somebody that was criticizing you when you wanted to draw all day, or when you wanted to just look at cloud shapes or play your video games all day long. Most of us didn't grow up with video games all day long, and so it's a different world. So that's a whole other talk about technology, right? And just a lot of learning that happens in there. And so one of the things that if we could notice that if we start feeling fearful, that's a red flag that we need to start connecting more with our kid instead of trying to control it. Because that's what we want to do when we're fearful. And when we control it, what we are doing is creating a power struggle. And there are enough power struggles in real life. We do not need to create them additionally.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. And I really love what you mentioned, do not duplicate school. That is such a great point. I feel like many people I know, when they, at least for us, when we started our homeschooling journey, and the immediate response is like, let's purchase some curriculum, and how can we duplicate school, schooling at home? I was like, it doesn't really work, right? You feel equally stressed, this curriculum, that curriculum, from one subject to another subject. But when you look at life, it's not as compartmentalized as,
Right.
every single different subject. Yeah.
Right. And so everything kind of weaves like a tapestry, right? That sometimes the blue is really intense and then it kind of fades out and another color comes in, or a different kind of thread. That's how subjects weave into our lives. And so when we think of the big arc, instead of thinking, okay, this month we must learn these things, why don't we think of over the course of childhood, and even then, it's really over the course of your whole life. You've got your whole life. And if you don't know your sevens, you carry a calculator with you on your phone all the time.
100%.
Kids that are mathy are very into it, and they play with math, and then they retain it because it's important to retain, because they're tired of checking their phone, because then they remember it. Kids that are more artistic probably aren't going to remember that. They're going to remember something else. And if we let them grow that, without saying, okay, wait, we don't have balance. We need balance. Balance, schmalance.
I so agree. I think that's my biggest takeaway as I observe my own children be on this journey, is that homeschooling or unschooling is that children will learn something if they are interested, right? Everything's driven by their interest. And when I think about the way that I start my business, because I'm interested in this, and then therefore I was waiting to figure out technology, to figure out this and that.
Yeah.
But if I had to take all the classes related to starting a business, I'll be like, oh my God. I'll still be studying, trying to
understand. You have to start over, because then the technology will have changed from the
Exactly. It's so much better. I learn a little bit, I implement, I go back to learn more. Like, this is like reiteration, right? Not an accumulation of knowledge, go through a test and then start my business. It doesn't even work like that.
Yeah, and nobody says to you, oh, but how old were you when you learned to read, though? Nobody says, oh, what, you were 9? Ooh, you were 12? Ooh. Nobody cares.
Who cares?
You read what you need. And if you're not even a good reader, maybe you're not a visual learner, then you have Audible. You have all kinds of audiobooks. You've got your Kindle, and it'll put on voice, and you'll be good to go.
Absolutely, yeah.
So school makes that reading is the holy grail, and it It's important to read, but it's the holy grail for school, because the way instruction happens in the first through third grades, they're really focused on the teacher delivering the material. And then at about fourth grade, then the kids have to start reading so that they can stay caught up. And so that's why it's so important there. In real life, it doesn't matter. You can still have conversations and watch a YouTube video and go find a blacksmith doing something interesting. I mean, there's just so many interesting things out in the world to learn. It doesn't all have to be reading. That's where
so
that one
powerful.
size fits all.
Yeah, I remember I interviewed some of my students on my live streaming show. I will never forget what one student shared. He said he's a high school student. He said that he never learned how to collaborate while he was a high school student because any type of collaboration is considered cheating.
Exactly.
He never learned. I was like, wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that was such a
That's a huge one.
I was huge. I was like, oh, wow, what are we doing to our kids? Yeah. But here we have a great question from Aina. And thank you for joining us live. What are important factors when unschooling a teen? I'm new to unschooling. So you are definitely in the right place. We have an unschooling
Yay
expert.
for you. I think the thing to remember is that there's no finish line. You don't have to put that kind of pressure on. And to also remember that maturity is a thing. That 13 and 14-year-olds that are still, sleeping in and just wanting to chat with their friends on their video games and, doing little things that we think, oh gosh, when are they going to be productive? By the time they're 17-ish, they start to shift. 16, 17, they just from a growth and development standpoint, they have changed a lot. And so when we think, I've got to make them do these things so they'll be ready for if they want to go to college. No, you don't. You should travel with them. You should talk to them. You should make their favorite snacks. You should watch videos together. You should talk about documentaries. Just live a life next to them. Without quizzing them and asking them, well, do you know this? And what are you going to do about that? And how about this? That makes them move away from you. If you want to be their person, if you want to be the one that they turn to when they have a problem at 1 o'clock in the morning, then you need to be working on things to build trust together so that you trust them and they trust you. And the way that works is not to hurry them through because I've got these things to do and you've got these things to do and let's do it. Okay, you can live like that, but it's not building a good connection. And so if you prioritize the connection, the other things will fall into place.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. My son never wrote a book report, never wrote a research paper, never did any of the typical academic type things. He decided that he wanted to join the Peace Corps. He'd been a kid who had done a lot of community service. We had hosted an exchange student. He traveled and was an exchange student. He really loved other cultures. He wanted to merge the two and join the Peace Corps. Then he discovered you got to have a degree to do that. And so at 17, he's like, guess I'm going to work on that now. And so he took community college classes. He aced them. And he transferred to a university where he didn't have to take an SAT or an ACT. He just went in as a transfer student. And then, interestingly, he got a degree in journalism because he wanted to do travel writing. This kid that never wrote anything more than a thank you note to grandma. And that was it. And
wow.
And what was also interesting is that when he did join the Peace Corps after he got his degree in journalism, magna cum laude even, he went to Nicaragua for his Peace Corps assignment, where he helped high school teachers teach English in their country. This kid that had never stepped foot in a high school was helping the high school teachers in another country. Because he loved learning, because he understood how to talk to people, because he understood all the things that you have time to do when you're not busy saying, no, write that research paper, and they don't want to. We didn't do that. We just didn't do it. And I just thought, well, they'll probably, I had lots of things that I thought that were wrong. I thought, well, they'll have to work 3 to 11 or the night shift because they never get up before noon. Well, come 16, the job opened at Barnes and Noble, and they had to open the store at 7 in the morning, and they did it. And they didn't have to practice getting up at 7 in the morning to be able to have a job. They wanted the money. They wanted that shift. They wanted to have their free time in the evening when all their friends came back home. And so they just did it. And so that was cool. And then the other thing that we were worried that he wouldn't do well in his classes because he hadn't gone to classes. All it takes is listening, you know, and they didn't have all that baggage that they carried, that the other kids carried of, I hate learning. I hate this. I wish I didn't have to be here. They wanted to be there. They wanted the end goal. They weren't just going to college because they were on a conveyor belt. Yeah, we got to do this and then this and then this because then we're going to have success. Maybe, you know, instead, I think they did the things that made sense to them because it fit with their interests. And they always knew they could change their mind. They always knew they could hop off and do something else. And so my middle child was an actress and a singer and a dancer and did community theater productions one after another and decided, oh, I think I want to go to Carnegie Mellon to learn about it. I'm like, oh, it's kind of pricey. Why don't you take a couple community college classes first? And so she took the community college assessment and didn't do well because she hadn't done very much. She hadn't done any academic kind of work. She had written fan fiction just for the fun of it, but she didn't understand a lot of the terminology for it. And so when we went back and talked to the counselor, she says, no big deal. You'll just take the classes that fit the score you got. So for basically it was, I call it developmental, but other people say, no, it's not developmental. It's just English 0032. And so that she took 3 semesters of math, 2 semesters of writing, and 1 semester of reading. And she goes, Mom, that was basically my high school because I took 3 semesters of 3 classes, 2 classes, and then 1 class. And now I'm totally caught up and ready to go. And she's, when are they going to ask me about the quadratic equation? I know it. Ask me. And because she was doing it at 18 instead of at 14 and 15 and 16 and so, you know, and so she said, and the other thing that was an interesting point that she made was I'm surrounded by kids that sat through classes for 12 years and they're not any further along than me. And I had at least this fabulous childhood of one theater production after another, and I am not in any delay. And then she ended up transferring to a conservatory, a film acting conservatory in New York, didn't even do the Carnegie Mellon thing, because you just never know where things are going to shift. And then my youngest, who said, I want to see what high school is like. So she hadn't had any prep, any academic prep. And she went into high school at 15 and did fine. She says they give you a quiz on Friday. The questions in the back of the book, if you look at the first line on every paragraph, that's where you'll find the answers to the questions in the back. Just all you have to do is listen. And so she did fine there, had the experience she wanted, and then left and went back to her hairstyle. She loved coloring hair and doing all that kind of stuff. And so she went back to it and went to cosmetology school in what would have been her senior year. And ended up, she owns her own business and she makes great money and does great and is really good with people because that was always her strong suit, that she loved the interactions with people. And so she didn't need to do the college path for that. So
I love it. Whereas, you know, so many, like I actually just gave a talk to a group of university students last night, and many of them literally have no idea what they want to do in life because for so many years they are simply being told, do
Right.
this is the sequence, this
Right.
is how you use bathroom, this is everything is predetermined. And then all of a sudden, by the time they graduate or are about to graduate from college, you're supposed to figure out your life. What you're
And it's really hard too, especially
impossible.
yeah. And when you've been spoon fed, there's a little meme that talks about when you've been spoon fed your whole childhood and your whole adolescence. All you really learn is the shape of the spoon. You don't, and that's so true. And so one of the things that my youngest said, because she's always doing little business ventures and stuff, and she said the kids that have gone to school, they are so hesitant. They're so frightened they're going to make the wrong decision. They just won't try it and see what happens. Let's try it. Let's not invest a lot of money. Let's just move in that direction and see. Because they're like frozen, like a deer in headlights. They don't know what to do. Somebody needs to tell us. We need to gather more opinions. No, we don't. We need to just walk a couple steps and then look from there. And so she says, I noticed they don't know how to do that. And so that was kind of an interesting revelation about why it's better from these high school years to spend time living life. If you travel, even if you just travel to the next town, and you take a city bus and you're like, I don't know, let's get off. Let's see what's here. And you just kind of play without an agenda. And you see what happens. And you make mistakes and you learn. That's not the end of the world. That's just more data for the next time this question rolls around. And yeah. So
I love this so much. And that fear of making mistakes, the fear of losing a point, the fear of like, oh God, I'm going to get a C, not getting a B. That is so concerning. I think anyone who is a parent or educator watching this right now or watching the replay, that is very concerning because that is a strong signal. The kid cares more about that final point than actually the journey of learning. But it is actually the journey of learning that is preparing the kid, not that final A or B or C.
Right.
It is
and
so
that's
sad.
the problem at the school because that is what the school's focused on. The school, it has to be quantifiable. That's part of how a system runs.
Absolutely.
And that's why a family is not a system. So don't bring that into your home. Don't bring that.
I love that. We're definitely getting a clip out of this. This is amazing. So here's a great comment from Camille. Thank you for joining us live. Highly recommend.
I know, Camille.
And dumping us down. I think that is a classic, right? I love that book too.
It's the first one we read.
Exactly. Too much school thinking leads us to being obedient. Yes, exactly. They are very good at listening, following specific instructions. They just fit in the box, right? I mean, we prepare them to do that. Yeah. What else do we expect?
Right. And that's not how adulthood works. There's nobody there to tell you, okay, now here's where you have this interest and you have these characteristics. And no, that's going to be you. You're going to have to know your own interests, your own characteristics, your own preferences and tendencies. And so if you have a parent or an adult that's walking through that with you as you're maturing, then and talking with you in the same way that we don't talk to a 3-year-old the way we talk to another adult. And we don't talk, I don't mean like the baby talk, but I mean like when we give them room to make 3-year-old decisions and give them room to make 13-year-old decisions. And give them room without our fear saying, oh my gosh, they're going to live under a bridge. No, they're just 13. They're doing 13 things. So I think we can get our fear. And that's another thing, too, that we've carried over from school experiences is that we've carried over, I want a gold star. I want an A for being a parent. I don't want someone to judge me and say, oh, gosh, she let her kid leave the house without her hair brushed. Or, oh, gosh, they're in unmatching socks. Oh, gosh, those kids, we're so worried about what other people are going to think of us. Yeah. Because we've been conditioned to care a great deal what other people think of us. Because when you live in a school for 12 years, that peer pressure is intense.
Yeah.
You don't have the option of leaving.
That's so good. That's such a good point because oftentimes as an unschooler, homeschoolers, you will hear people ask you this question: how about social skills? That is not a good question because I notice homeschoolers have excellent social skills because they have that intergenerational communication, whereas most school kids, they're like they're only talking to their peers. That's the only people that practice their communication skills.
Right. And so also, the thing to remember if you're just thinking about homeschooling is you are not going to be the only adult they run into. They're going to take dance classes or do something at 4-H or go to the library and talk to the librarian or talk to the guy at the drive-thru. They are going to have other conversations with people. And they're, whether it's your adult friends or their friends' parents. And so they're going to have a lot of different opportunities to have socialization with the community. And so it's not like, desk proximity does not really make for the best friends. Instead, shared interests do. So say your kid is really interested in photography and you've got a guy in the neighborhood who does stuff and he's going to take the kids and show them how to do this landscaping stuff.
That's right.
And then they learn to interact with each other based upon shared interests. Or maybe they're in scouts or they're in a church group or they're in something in your community or they're playing basketball at the park. There's just a lot of different ways. Or you go to a homeschool conference when those all start back up.
Yeah,
and I really try to go to an unschool conference. A homeschool conference is really going to give you a lot of anxiety. It's going to make you want to buy curriculum.
I think it's just like a big exhibition for like a different curriculum, and they all claim this curriculum is the curriculum that your kid is going to become.
Yeah. Your life will be set if you buy this. And
biggest lie. We tried those curriculum.
We are mere mortals when it comes to marketing, right?
Exactly.
They know how to hit our pain buttons.
Exactly. I mean, I love this comment from Lance, talking about in business and life, collaboration is 1 + 1 means 5+. And that's so true. It's so sad that our kids never learned true collaboration. And actually, I was listening to an interview of a unschooler, and he said that when he actually unschooled for quite a few years, I went back to school to try it out, and he will be doing the homework, and his classmate will be telling him, hey, you don't have to do that. You don't have to. But he said, I wanted to do this because I'm interested in this. That is a conversation you don't hear a lot from traditional school students.
No, it's the minimum. I remember laying in my bed with my calculator trying to figure out what was the lowest score I could get to keep my GPA. What kind of craziness was that? That's what we're conditioned to do, right?
Absolutely. I want to go back to your personal story. I think your children are amazing. And I love how you just openly shared what they are doing on your website, which is really, I really appreciate that, because I think that is a big fear for many parents. Are my kids going to be okay?
Right.
So you shared your youngest has this like lots of business ideas. I just want to use her as an example. Is that something that you intentionally cultivate, or is everything just kind of organically, beautifully flowing?
I think it just organically happened because we were just, as they were growing up, we were just living life. We were just going, what they were interested in, then we did it. Katie wanted to do another theater production, so we did it. Lissa wanted to take horseback riding lessons, so we did it. And we just kept moving in that direction. So I think that the entrepreneurial stuff comes when you start to make money. And you start to see, this would be a better way for me to make more money if I did this. And so what they brought with them was not necessarily how to do that, but they brought with them that, how do I do what I want to do? How do I not be afraid to try things? How do I look for my resources? Where she's trying to grow her Instagram account. So now she's learning how to make reels, and she's, doing different things. That was not something we were talking about, even a year and a half ago. But because they are really engaged in their world, they know, okay, all right, I can figure this out. Let's move in that direction, as opposed to what you were describing, when the kid was trying to do more problems and they were saying, you don't have to do that. Our kids haven't had that. Nobody said to them, you only have to ride that horse 1 lap around. You can ride it out many times you wanted. and until you got the hang of it. And
Mm.
then you knew when you had the hang of it, not because you took a quiz that said now you have a 75, so that's good enough to progress to the next level. None of that even was part of their lives. It was just part of engaging with their life. And so that's why, she does that. And so her, and then because I have a business, so she taps into what am I doing and how am I doing it? How did I grow that Instagram account? And what did I do to have such a large number of whatever it is? And so she just implements what she sees, and there's just a lot of ways to learn things. But I think she doesn't have the resistance, and she understands how to tap into resources. And I think that's not, I think that school kids are told, here are your resources, tap into those if you get stuck. But nobody hands that to you in real life.
Nobody.
You
I
know?
mean, yeah. I mean, just I actually taught in the classroom for 10 plus years. Just my teaching course syllabus is getting longer and longer because students are literally fill in the blank. Give us templates, samples. I was like, wow. But in real life, there's no template, there's no sample. You just have to figure this out. But like because they have been guided, hold hand for so many years,
Right.
they just don't know how to
That
walk
they can let
anymore.
go of your hand when they're an adult. You walked holding their hands all along, and then they're like, okay, now you're holding me back. I got to go. and then that's what happens. And the good thing about it is that it's not like at 18, now they're adults, or at 21, and now they're adults. There is a period of time that is like coming back and going out and coming back and going out. And that's okay too, because that's more of an organic way to leave all this scaffolding and then be able to go and do what you need to do in real life. So it's really a beautiful way to live.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so I love this comment from Kittens. Thank you for joining us live. And talking about the hardest part is to get school out of your head. I think everyone, I'm still struggling with this. 3 years later, of pulling our kids out, they're thriving. Congratulations. They study what they love, they play, they help me run my kitten rescue business. And wow, amazing. I love that. Teenagers, yeah, I love that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that what I always tell them in my membership group is that the parents, their job is to undo all that school that's in their head, to undo all that conditioning, that deschooling that needs to happen. And the kids are going to have to learn how to deal with independence and how to deal with freedom. And they're going to make mistakes. And that's okay. Just like you make mistakes when you implement some schooly thing that you're like, oh, I guess I didn't really need to do that. Well, the same thing happened. Everybody has their own little stuff that they need to get through, that they need to figure out. And then sometimes kids have some deschooling to do too, especially kids that have been in school for a long time where they have been told, do this and do this and do this because that's how you get success. Otherwise, you'll work fast food the rest of your life if you don't do this, this, and this. And it isn't true. And so we have to undo some of that thinking because it's true in the system that you have to do those things to excel in their system. But there is no guarantee that you might not need to pick up a fast food side job, for Christmas money or something. And we don't have to look down our noses at stuff. And I think that there is such a push for that. And instead, just live. Get the money you need to do the things you want to do. Enjoy your life. And not worry, how does this look to other people? Or what, am I successful? Just do what makes your heart happy.
Absolutely.
And move in that direction. And then the rest kind of works out.
Absolutely. I mean, I can't agree more with you. I think you shared, I think on your Facebook of this lady, her name is April. She did this video on TikTok talking about how her husband is making like three times.
Yes.
Right. You want to tell more about making a lot more and he doesn't even have any debt, but she's still paying off her master degree.
Right, I think she had a master's. She said, I did all the things I was supposed to do, and then I got my master's, and okay, and now I have tons of debt. And my husband, who now owns his own, I think, a plumbing business or something, that he makes more than I make. He does not still have debt from his training to become that, and then his apprenticeship. So I think we've been kind of sold a bill of goods as far as school goes. And school wants more school. You know, they want you to stay in school and go get more school and do more stuff. And, you know, we don't know how many years we have to live. So
Yeah,
are
I
you
do too.
living the way you want to live?
I mean, that's why my friend and I, we wrote this book, Skip the Degree, Save the Tuition. Exactly. I bought into that line myself. I believed, having as many degrees as possible, that was my way to success. And after I got all the degrees, I quickly discovered it is not. I wasn't happy. I was pretty
Right.
depressed. Yeah, yeah. But
And you
anyway,
excelled in their system. You were the top of their system, but their system didn't translate into your adulthood.
there's a huge gap. There is absolutely a huge gap. Yeah. So I'm enjoying this conversation. We have quite a few people live with us and still live with us. So thank you so much, Sue, for this incredible conversation. Like I know we didn't even have time to talk about
I
two
know you gave
sports.
me all those questions, and then I didn't even do them. We just
I'd love to have you back, talk about social media. We are absolutely on the same page regarding video games and social media. That is another great topic, but anyway, maybe another episode. But please do share with us. You talked about your membership site. I have been sharing your social media, your Facebook, and your website here has lots of resources for you guys to check out, blog articles, like really incredible. So check it out. And here's the book. But please do also tell us more about where can people learn about you, and tap into your brain and
yeah.
to be
Well, I'm
also.
excited. You know, that's how I did it. Is that I picked people's brains, and so come pick my brain. It'll be fine. And I have a lot of time now that my kids have grown. Life looks way different. So the best place is unschoolingmomtomom.com. It's been going on since 2014, and it is a huge collection of unschooling information. And so I put that in the chat, and I'm sure you'll have it somewhere. But there is that's the Facebook group that I just put up, and it is well, that's the Facebook page. So many different things.
I
So
know you are literally all over the place. I
yeah,
love
if
it.
you put unschooling mom to mom with the two in whatever platform you like, it'll show up. And so there we go. That's perfect, and that will get you everywhere you need to go. I have a membership group that I absolutely love, because what it is a collection of parents that are on this walk together. And so often we are isolated where we live, not just from the pandemic, but even from, which certainly adds a huge layer of, oh my gosh, how isolated people feel. But in our communities, we don't always have a lot of unschoolers running around. So people are kind of giving us the side eye when we're not doing math with them in a textbook. And so you might need to have some other people around you that can say, oh yeah, and here's what I did when that happened. Or, oh yeah, I was there and this is what we did. Or somebody should just say, oh, I'm so excited they did this. And people are like, yay, because they get it. And it's not like, well, what have they done like for school stuff? And so it's nice to have a community of people. And so I have a lot of resources. We do coaching calls, multiple coaching calls a week. And so I can give you a lot of support. And then I just, I make PDFs like for fun. And so I have I have like 200 PDFs that are in the membership, where just little things. You got a little problem with self-care. Here's a little PDF for it. You got a little problem with learning to read. Here's a PDF for it. So all that stuff's wrapped up in the membership. So that's really my favorite thing. I do one-to-one coaching. If you're like, I'm not a membership person, I just want to talk to you for a while, I do that. So you can find that. And what else do I do? I have a course. I forgot about my course, Jumping into Unschooling. And so you can find that at Unschooling Mom to Mom also. And then I have an email list. You can get on my email list, and I'll keep you current every week with different resources that I've run into or the things that are happening. And I have a podcast now. I started a podcast in March, and I really recommend it because it's a 5 to 10 minutes. Sometimes I'm a little wordy and it's 12 minutes because I know what it's like to be busy and to think, I want to listen to that podcast, but I do not have an hour. But you got 5 minutes. So while you're folding laundry or while you're doing the dishes, I want to give you a little pep talk about how to connect with your kids and how the learning really is happening all around you. And you don't have to switch over and duplicate school. You don't have to do that. And so the podcast might help you do that. So just lots of resources. Reach out. I'm happy to. And then the YouTube, also Unschooling Mom to Mom.
Yeah, and just I have just learned so much from like just your YouTube channel. I have the YouTube channel here. And I love how just a final comment, because last week I interviewed Dr. For those of you who are still watching this right now live with us, you should definitely check out my interview with Dr. Sunil Luther from last week, because she discovered in her research the secret to raising, resilient, vibrant children is actually the well-being of the mom. So because you were talking about self-care, I was like, wow, it reminds me of that research. Isn't that interesting? And she cited so much research documenting when the mom, they didn't even work on the kids.
Right.
When the mom is feeling happier, supported, better, the kids actually do better. This is documented by scientific research. I was like, wow, that is so interesting, because most parents would think, if I want my own kids to do better, I need to take my kids to this class, that class, blah, blah, blah.
Or expose them to this and really.
Exactly. But she was, Dr. Luther, she was talking about, no, that is wrong. We are barking on the wrong tree. We have to focus on whoever's taking care of the kid, mostly mom. We really need to focus on the well-being, the self-care of the mom. I was like, wow, that is incredible. It's
and
really
certainly,
powerful.
There are dads out there that are heavily involved, stay-at-home dads that are probably the one that's doing more. But I do think that homeschooling and unschooling specifically is kind of a mother's movement. I really do think that it's when the moms are like, no, this isn't going to work for my kid. I can do something better. And when they decide, I am really going to accept this advocacy role more so that I know that I'm going to move in that direction. So when you take that responsibility, that makes total sense. That how your perspective on the world is going to make a huge difference in how successful this goes, how your kids 100%. Learn, and how happy they are with life. So working on, and I think that's another interesting thing from a human nature standpoint. We want to work on someone else.
Exactly, right?
Someone else's kitchen.
Exactly. I actually did a survey. I was like, yeah, if you want your kids to be more resilient, what should you do? I give like a number of options. Most people choose the option, send my kid to a resilience class. I was like,
right. When really you need to demonstrate resilience.
Yeah, it's really to focus on them. Exactly. Yeah. But anyway, I don't want to take more of your time. This is an incredible conversation. I love you. You are just absolutely amazing. So fun to talk to. And thank you so much, everyone, for joining us live from all over the globe. And please make sure to subscribe, to check Sue out and follow her, all the good stuff that she mentioned. And I hope to see you guys again next Friday or Saturday, same time, same location, for another amazing conversation to discuss, debate, and disrupt education. Bye, everyone.
Thanks for having me. Bye.
Don't leave yet.